everyone. Thank you for joining. Hi, Christopher. How are you?
How you doing, Lauren?
I'm so good. I'm so happy that we could connect. I know we've had conversations not on the live, but I am so excited to have this conversation.
100%, 100%. Thank you for having me, and I really hope that there's going to be some massive value here for you and your audience, and really excited to be here.
Definitely. So let's hop right in. So let me introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. I am Dr. Lauren. I always like to share with my audience that I am a special educator. I am not an adult with dyslexia. I am neurodiverse myself. I do have ADHD, but I love interviewing professionals and adults that have dyslexia or professionals that work with people that have dyslexia because it brings awareness, and it's just a topic we need to talk about. It's a topic that we need to be more well versed in. So Christopher, if you don't mind introducing yourself to our audience, I would love that.
Yes, 100%. Thank you, Lauren. So, but like you said, I'm actually somebody with dyslexia. And when it comes to dyslexia, people ask me, hey, like how much dyslexia do you have, like on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm probably 30 on 10. So it's really, really high up there. So like Lauren said, my name is Christopher Dedeyan. I am a professional speaker and a peak performance business and life coach. And yeah, I was blessed to have dyslexia and just kind of live with it and really now do a lot of my philanthropy work within that industry.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that. So let's hop right into the questions. And I know that you're not quite sure what they are, and I love this because I can't wait for the honest answers that are going to come forth. So my first question is, I want to know in a short amount of time, what was your journey? Like, when were you diagnosed? Was your dyslexic journey, was it, I don't want to say it was easy, but I'm just curious to know how that was. And the second part, I know that you speak 3 languages, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really want to know how that has impacted your dyslexia as well.
100%. Okay, awesome question. So let's start with the first one. So I was blessed to be diagnosed at 8 years old. And how that happened was my parents used to compare me to my sister, which is 2 years older. And they used to say, like my sister at Chris's age was reading so much better. How come Chris is not reading to the same level? And they were seeing that I was putting effort and it just wasn't clicking. So they went to go see the principal of the school that I was in and saying, hey, my kid is like having issues. What can we do? And the principal's like, no, maybe just take some time to develop. My parents didn't take that as an answer. They went, they got me tested, and finally 8 years old, I got diagnosed. Now, at 8 years old in the middle of the school year, my parents come and tell me, Chris, we're going to take you out of the school that you're in right now. We're going to put you in a specialized school, which is actually called Vanguard. It's a school in the greater region of Montreal, which I'm from, Canada, Montreal. And it's only for tailored towards students with learning disabilities. Now, at 8 years old, Lauren, all I hear is I'm losing my friends and I'm going to a special school. I didn't want that. Like, I'm 8 years old. I don't understand what dyslexia is. I thought it was weird and so on.
Right.
So then I get into the school. The first thing I realized, I'm like, oh my God, wait a minute, I'm not alone. There's like hundreds of other kids like me that have learning disabilities. So it's the first cognitive understanding that I have with dyslexia, but I still don't understand it. Then I have the chance within those schools to work with specialists such as yourself, Lauren. So now I realize it is just really a different form of learning. I have to understand what are my tools, what are my methodologies, how do I utilize these tools to be able to read, to be able to succeed. Now, as I go through that journey, and I'm almost done here, I'm going to kind of give you guys a loop here.
No, this is good.
Awesome, awesome. So as I'm going through the high school journey, getting more confident with dyslexia, understanding who I am, then at the end of the year of the high school, what do we have to do? We have to figure out, hey, what do we want to go study in? What professional we want to go into, right? And one thing that comes to me is I want to be a lawyer. I like wearing nice suits. I like talking. I'm like, cool, that's my spot. Then as I'm studying that or looking into studying that, I realized like 95% of the job of a lawyer has to do with reading and writing.
Exactly.
I'm like, all right, let me get out of that. I'm like, that's not my thing. So then I start looking for careers that don't have a lot of reading or no reading at all. So what I find is actually fireman. I'm like, all right, cool. Let me be a fireman. Let me go into that industry. And that's just something that just drives me, like the big fire trucks, the adrenaline, the boys, like the whole mind was like, yeah, it was very, very intriguing to me. Now, it took a couple of years before getting into the fireman school. Finally got into that. Now, at that point, I went through a journey of not understanding what dyslexia is, trying to figure it out, getting a bit more comfortable. Now going into the professional world. As a professional, in the beginning of my career, I was shy about dyslexia. I did not want my peers to know. I didn't want my employers to know. I didn't want people to think less of me because I had dyslexia. So there was that whole aspect behind it. Now, as my career developed into the fireman world, I realized that that wasn't my life's purpose. My life's
Right.
purpose was to be an entrepreneur. I remember, Lauren, when the teacher used to come into the classroom and say, kids, put yourself in teams. Even before she finished the word three, I had my head up and I was looking for who reads the best in the class, who writes the best. Let's put a team together. Let me delegate the work. Let me do my stuff and then get the grade together. That's delegation 101. When I
Right.
was in college and I was failing, I used to go see the teacher afterwards. I'm like, oh, no, that's not what I meant. This is what I meant. I used to negotiate my grade up.
Negotiate. Yes. Yes.
Negotiation 101. So I realized my whole life, my dyslexia has been shaping me and preparing me for this entrepreneurial world. So then I go into being a real estate broker. I love real estate. I went into that, started into that. Took a couple of years really to kick off. Then I started really going really well in real estate. At that point, my speech therapist that used to follow me in high school called me up to ask me a question about a real estate property. After a few minutes, she's like, Chris, how's everything going with you? And as you guys are noticing, I could definitely go on some rants. So I went on a rant there and I'm like, it's going great. I was in the peak of my real estate career. I had an abundance of money. I was succeeding in the frame of what success is in society, the car, the this, the that, mid-20s. And after a few seconds, she's like, Chris, I am the keynote speaker at this event put together by the Learning Disability Institute of Quebec. I would love for you to come and present to us your story as a dyslexic entrepreneur, how you're succeeding. I'm like, beautiful, Bridget. Wow. I will come 100%. Now, Lauren, that same evening, she sends me an email. In the subject letter, in big caps, it's written, Chris, I do not think you should do this meeting because you shouldn't do this speech because there's still a lot of people that have a negative perception of what dyslexia is, and you might actually lose some clients because of that. Wow. Now, I know that she was coming from a place of love. She was coming from a place of protection. She wanted to kind of help me out there. Now, I write her an email. I'm like, you know what? This is Friday evening. I'm like, I'm going to call you Monday. We'll talk about it. I think I should do the speech. Monday rolls around, give her a call. I'm like, Bridget, listen. If I don't do this speech, I'm not helping the kids that are on the school benches. I'm not helping the next generation of the kids, and I'm not helping my future kids because it's something hereditary. I'm like, right. I would be fake. I'm like, I'm not fake. I'm like, I need to do this speech. And I'm like, listen, if there is a client that don't want to work with me because I'm dyslexic, those are not clients that I want to work with either. It's as simple as that.
Exactly.
Now, Lauren, I'm almost done here to kind of giving you the arc of how I ended up being what I'm doing now. Now, at that point, she told me there's going to be about 200 people in the room. I've never done a speech. I got prepared for it, but I didn't know what to expect. Lauren, I walk into this room. I open a door. I look left and right. There isn't 200 people. It's more like 1,000 people. Oh, now my heart is beating. I am dripping in sweat. I'm like, what is happening? The pressure is on. They're like the professionals that are going on stages, doctorates such as yourselves, this, that, and the other. I'm just like, yo, why am I here? And then they call me up, Chris, come on stage. Please tell us your story. And it was like this divine moment. I truly believe this, the universe has been preparing me for that particular moment. And it was like magic for me. And then from that moment on, I realized that's what I have to do for the rest of my life. I have to help people, to make people understand what learning disability is, and help people within me being a speaker and a coach. So that's the whole transition that happened with my dyslexia. In the beginning, didn't understand it, start figuring it out, being shy about it, not wanting to talk about it. And now putting it in the forefront in front of thousands of people. And that speech, that's how my speaking career kicked off. The Ministry of Education was there from my province of Quebec. They did work with me for that. There was a lot of newspapers, it kind of picked up on that end. So that's how the whole arc happened about me, my relationship with dyslexia. So that was only your first question, by the way. Let me go to the second one. It's going to be a bit shorter. So you did mention I do speak 3 languages. So I'm actually Armenian descent, born and raised in Montreal. Both parents are Armenian. So my first language at home we speak is Armenian. My second language would be English. So it's the most common language that I use. And third is French. Now I speak very fluent French. I speak all 3 very fluent. If I would say one language I don't speak as good as the other ones would be Armenian, but I'm still very fluent in Armenian as well. So where the difficulty was for me is that I don't know if anybody knows French. It is a very difficult language, especially when it comes to grammar, especially when it comes to certain specifications of the language. It's not as easy as English. So being dyslexic, it was an added challenge.
Right.
And me coming from an immigrant background, when I was in Quebec, I had to 100% be in a French school. So I did my whole schooling in French. Now, granted, I love it because I'm 100% fluent in French. It's not an issue for me. So now I speak 3 languages very fluently, but it did very much play a role when it came to my my learning with my dyslexia. So much so that before, actually, when I finished my high school and all my schooling, I was a lot better at reading and writing in French, and reading and writing in English was almost subpar, not existent in my life because we didn't do it enough. And then once
Right.
I went into the professional world, I just developed everything more in my English, and I realized that I picked it up so much faster. So there is an actual difference, I believe, in my opinion, with these experience that I've had, different languages that help your difficulties in one way, shape, or form.
I love hearing your story, and I was looking at a few comments, and I love hearing the differences of you were diagnosed at a young age, and your parents weren't just listening to the first thing, oh, you know, he'll grow out of it or whatever. Like, they were like, no, we're going to put you in a place that can actually help you. And I connect with that because that's where I started my career, in a specific private dyslexic school where there were parents that were like, the public schools are not doing what is best for my child, so we need to put them in an environment. And it makes a world of a difference when you're, as you know, if you are diagnosed at an early age, if you have all the supports put in place. So I just love hearing that. So thank you so much for sharing that. And then also adding in that language piece. So that leads me to my next question. And I really want to know, because I know that you said you didn't prepare, or you were preparing for the speech, but there were like 1,000 people and it was just adrenaline. So since you are a successful entrepreneur and a public speaker, like, did you always love speaking? Was that something you had to grow into? You know, and also who or what, I know there are a lot of different things, made the biggest impact on like who you are today? And I know it's probably a hard question,
Yeah.
but you know, like what do you think is the biggest thing that helped you with your success? And so I guess it's two different questions again.
Yeah, no worries. So awesome with that. So the first question, let me just recap it once again. So what was it again? What do you want me to ask?
It was more that, since you're such a great speaker, did you always love speaking? Was that something that you just acquired? Like, yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so the speaking side of things. So I definitely believe that I had like a God-given gift to communicate. And when I'm talking about God-given gift, it was something that was necessary for me to succeed in the education system that we had. And why am I saying that? Because the first barrier of entry is reading. What do I mean? When you're in elementary school, what is the first thing that they bring to really separate and see, hey, where are you at with your grades? Is the letters, alphabets, right? And then they put it together and they start making you read it. So then that shows, oh, this kid's good, this kid's not good, in the structure that we have right now. Now, in my case, if we correlate that, I would be horrible. I just can't read. So then you would think that I'm not smart. So I noticed that maybe in a subconscious way, not necessarily in a cognitive way at a very young age. So I noticed that, hey, if I want to be positioning myself as somewhat of somebody's like, hey, no, this kid's not stupid, I have to be able to express myself in an eloquent way. So that's, I think, really the dyslexia hindered that and prepared that, because I could not rely on my reading and my writing. So my other skills had to develop, such as like a blind person, if I could give a correlation here.
I was just about to say that, actually.
So,
yes.
So that's exactly what it is, right? Somebody that's blind doesn't have the aspect to see, but his other senses get so much more heightened. Exactly. He smells more, he hears more, the vibration. He's so much more in tune with his body and the awareness of what's happening, because he doesn't have the sight. So that's what it is, and I think it got developed. Now, that being said, do I sit on my laurels as a professional speaker? No, I love it, and I work on my craft. I mean, I study it. I have speaking coaches. I like look at that in ins and out of it. So I developed that skill, and God willing, become more predominantly eloquent in that art form. So that's that aspect in itself. So when it comes to like me being a speaker. Now, when it came to, sorry, I'm gonna have to excuse me. What was the second question again?
So it was more of who or what was that?
Yes, inspired.
That biggest impact.
Okay. So obviously, like everybody, I mean, I could pull out a laundry list, literally a laundry list of people that have supported me, that have changed my life, so on and so forth. But here's some highlight reel. First and foremost is my core family. Like my parents, my sister. I was just so blessed. Really, I really am and was blessed to grow up in the environment that I grew up in, with caring, loving parents that challenged me, that supported me, with a sister, like all of that. Now, as well, everybody, this is why I love teachers so much. And I do a lot of my philanthropy, like I said, within that, and we'll talk about it in an instant. There is definitely some teachers that I could name that have changed my perception when things were a bit difficult. They're like, hey, Chris, do this, do that, and whatever, that changed my life.
Right.
And there is that aspect. And there is in the professional world, my mentors, my coaches that have literally leveled me up to become the person that I am today. So yeah, I could do a laundry list, like I said, but it's sort of like the main points of the people that kind of have shifted my life in such a positive way and have supported me to really live within my greatness.
I love that. So I have two more questions for you, Chris. So the next
Go
one
for it.
is, so obviously you've talked about your connection with dyslexia and the learning disability community. And I know that you just said teachers, you can pinpoint those teachers who really made an impact. And you know,
Yes.
I'm a special educator and this is my passion.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just share a little bit about what is the work that you are doing? Are you on some boards? Do you donate money? Like, what are some of the things that you do in the disability learning community?
Yes, so all of the above. So one of my life goals is really to demystify the myth of learning disabilities. I feel like it's my duty that I got into a certain position like this. So if I could shine some light on anybody, towards a parent, towards a kid that has learning disabilities, and kind of difficult to be like, hey, wait a minute, this kid did it. I'm not special. I'm normal like everybody else.
Right.
And like, how does he do it? So to give that support. Now, when it comes to my philanthropy work, like you said, I did mention the school Vanguard, which is a phenomenal school in my district. So I'm actually the president of the Alumni Association. So the graduating students, I've been doing that for several years. I'm a part of their board of directors for the foundation, as well as their center of expertise. Like I said, I have done some work with the Ministry of Education. I truly believe that our education system, and not only for learning disabilities, but our education system in general, especially in the States as well, which you guys being like in $1.5 trillion in debt, is completely wrong and structured in a way that doesn't really communicate our creativity, really understand that there's different forms of learning, and it's really
Right.
boxed and structured. So I do believe that there is shifts that are currently happening, and
Right.
I am working on making those things happen within my own righteousness as well. And I believe as a society, if we all do it together, then the education system, the government is not going to have any choice other than to change that, because it is like a revolution. The power is in the number of people. So more
Right.
people realize that the structure is not supporting them anymore.
Right.
Granted, it had a place back in the day, but right now it's just not, with the day and age, with the money, with the new job positions. There's that shift that's happening. So that's how I support that aspect. Obviously, every chance I can as well, I donate, I give my time, and so on and so forth. So that's the way I really try to support in any way, shape, or form. And as minimal and this is how you kind of found me, Lauren, everywhere on my socials, I put dyslexic and proud.
Exactly.
I
Yes.
put it there. I want people to like, hey, okay, if anybody that needs to see that sees it and notices it, if that person needs to bring it up, it's there. I'm not hiding from it. It's in the forefront.
And I think that makes a huge difference. I really does.
Mm-hmm.
I really do, because I feel like people right now are on this live with us, and I'm reading some of the comments, and I think they're totally just vibing with this conversation and hearing all of your success, your passion. Like you have so much to offer. And I think there's so many kids and adults that are out there that are diagnosed late. They don't recognize like, oh, I didn't know what was going on, or now I do, but why did it take so long? Or I didn't have confidence to do this. So I'm just so happy that we are able to have this conversation and for you to share your experience. So
100%.
one
And
more
Lauren,
question.
before we go into that question, do you permit if I just add one thing on what you just said over there? Because it was just
Absolutely.
beautiful and delicious. I mean, like I said, I am a professional speaker and a coach. I work with top-end CEOs and Fortune 500 and C-suites. Lauren, you have no idea how many people come work with me and then they tell me, hey, I'm dyslexic, or I think I'm dyslexic, or I got
Right.
diagnosed at X number of time. How do you deal with this? How do you do this? And all that, because they've done their whole life with this. They haven't been put in the proper element, structure. They haven't learned the proper methodologies and tricks to thrive. And these are people that are like multimillionaires, successful, have like employees, like hundreds of employees, but they don't know this. There's actually a lot of dyslexic entrepreneurs, right? So I get that all the time. And I wanted to, before going to your next question, Lauren, I just wanted to clarify one aspect or one analogy that I think is going to be very helpful for people, because there's some people that are like, hey, maybe what is dyslexia? Now, obviously, your community is very much in tone with what dyslexia is,
Right.
but this is the best explanation that I have figured out and I give. And Lauren, I'm going to ask you to kind of play along here. So I see that you have glasses right now, right? You have seeing eye glasses, so you have myopia. I'm going to ask you to take off your glasses right now. Do you mind just taking it off from me? All right.
Sure.
So now, Lauren, you probably still see me, right? But you probably don't see very clearly, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not blind. You just see blurry, right? Now that is what dyslexia is. we could read. It's just so much more difficult. It takes us five times more effort for us to read than somebody that doesn't have dyslexia. Now,
Right.
Lauren, put your glasses back on. Put it back on. Your nice glasses, which by the way, they suit you very well. They frame your face very well. So, so now you see me very clearly, right?
Right.
Now the question is, as dyslexic, is what are my seeing eye glasses? That's the question we have to ask ourselves.
Exactly.
And for me, that answer is my systems such as Speechify, which is a read to text thing. My systems such as speak to text, so I speak everything. My correctors like Ansidote, whatever the case is. So the question isn't how do I eliminate dyslexia, because it doesn't get eliminated. The question is, how do I find my proper glasses?
Exactly.
Which is the tools, the methodologies, and how you approach it. So I just wanted to kind of give that analogy to you guys. Hopefully it supported you.
No, I think that's great. And I think a lot of folks need it really like pared down, because there's so many long definitions. And I think when you give, and you're really great with analogies. I love that. Like when you make analogies, I'm like, wow, that really makes a lot of sense. So thank you for sharing that. So you touched on the fact that there are a lot of dyslexic entrepreneurs. So it was almost like you knew my last question. So
go for it.
If there are any dyslexic entrepreneurs or dyslexic folks out there who want to start a business, what 3 pieces of advice would you give them?
Awesome. Great. I love this question. And you know what? This is going to be like towards a conversation of people with dyslexia, but this is valid for any entrepreneur.
Anyone,
okay?
Right.
Okay, I really believe this. First and foremost, and this, like I said, valid for everybody. So listen to this properly. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and figure out what are your strengths and what are the places you need to optimize. So let's call it your weaknesses. As you realize these things, then you're like, all right, cool. Within my business, this is where I have to play because I am phenomenal at this. This is why I went into entrepreneurship. This part is going to be the mechanic part. This part is going to be the technician part, doing in the work, but it's not something that you necessarily like to do. So in my particular case, because I'm dyslexic, give me stages to speak on, give me interviews like this, give me coaching, give me speaking, I'm all for it. Right. But then if you have to do the paperwork, read the emails, do this, that, not as much. So first thing, as a entrepreneur, figure out what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. Once you figure out your weaknesses, then find people that their strengths are your weaknesses, right. Bring them on board, and then you guys go forward. Now to do so, you have to have a very strong mission and vision, because people don't come work for me. It's not about Christopher Dedeyan. It's just a given name. It's more about, I'm a vehicle the universe here to serve, such as every single person, such as Lauren, such as this conversation is here, not for us, it's to serve the person that needs to hear this conversation, right?
Right.
So if you present it as, this is my mission and vision, which it could be, my mission and vision is to optimize people who want to perform. This is one of my mission and visions. And the other one is, I want to demystify the Learning Disability Institute. Then I could find people that are extremely good at what they do, that is going to help me out, and they have the same mission and vision. So first and foremost, look at your strengths, look at your weaknesses, delegate your weaknesses to your strengths. Those 2 things. And the last thing I would say for a dyslexic entrepreneur, because like I said, I work a lot within that field, I hire people with learning disabilities so much more than people that don't have. And here's why. So it's kind of like an advice and kind of like a little wink to that aspect. Learning disabilities create the most relentless people I have met. And not to knock off anybody that doesn't have it, that kind of goes through life in an easy sense when it comes to schooling.
Right.
What I've noticed, the first time they go into entrepreneurship and they hit that wall, because it's not maybe, it's not inevitable. It is inevitable. You are going to hit a wall as an entrepreneur. That could be a tough sale, that could be bankrupt, that could be this, that, and the other. The thing that I've noticed with people with learning disabilities, they just get up and like, all right, cool, let's keep on moving forward, because their whole life, the education system has created that relentlessness of failure and continuing. But if you never practice that skill, the first failure is going to feel paralyzing. And you'll be like, all right, let me not do this. So here's my thing. Do not be afraid to continue moving forward. So my best advice is continue listening to your inner intuition. If it feels right, go towards it. If you fail, step back up and learn, because that's what real entrepreneurship is. Go look at the most successful people. It's the person that has failed the most. Just learn from your failures, and your failures do not become anything other than lessons. That's why they're not failures anymore, they're lessons. So that's the way I would speak to that.
I love that. You know, Chris, this was such an amazing conversation. We've had so much amazing engagement. I'm so excited that we were able to connect. So I want to thank you for your time this afternoon, or this morning rather, because we're both in the same time zone. So thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you, Lauren. It was a true pleasure. And I just want to mention as well, if anybody has any questions, please do not hesitate to contact Lauren or
Yes.
myself. You guys could follow us on the socials, on my socials at Christopher Dedeyan everywhere. If you guys want to go find out more about any of the things that I do, go check out my YouTube channel at Christopher Dedeyan. I have a lot of content on there, and I have some content on learning disabilities as well, from dyslexia, ADHD, from dysgraphia, and so much more.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Chris, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye.